guys, so I have this body paint and makeup tutorial thing for you guys today. It's inspired by Tracy Lewis. I will link her down below. She does beautiful watercolors. And yeah, let's just get into it. The first thing we are doing is I'm just sketching out everything that I'm going to be painting. So I'm sketching out the moon, the bird, the roses, the leaves, just all of it. I'm painting my bird, so I'm taking some yellow body paint from Mehron, mixing it with some white, and I'm putting that on his little belly. And every time I lay down paint, I go in with my little tiny beauty blender and I just tap it out because it just helps it blend. I also colored in his beak, and then I went in with the paint called felou, and I started to paint in the rest of his body. Once I get done painting his cute little body, I went in and I painted the inside of his mouth with some light brown paint, and then I went in and I painted his wings. Like, I'm just separating them with some darker brown paint. I'm also separating like his head from his body, and I'm just kind of looking at reference for this and putting them wherever I think that they would be, and also wherever they are in the picture. With Star from the Pastel Goth palette, I went in and I started to lay down some eyeshadow on his belly, and I also took a little bit of white from the Editorial Brights palette from Viseart, and I just started to add in a little bit of lighting on his belly and on his head. Then I went in with a combination of Star and Skull from the Kat Von D Pastel Goth palette, and I started to put in some highlights on the feathers. With Morocco from Anastasia Beverly Hills, the eyeshadow, I am just doing some shading on these feathers. I'm putting them beside the highlights and just kind of bringing this bird to life. With Java from the Naturally Pretty palette, I'm just doing some deeper shading, so where those wings are separated, where like the belly is, where the beak is. I'm looking at a lot of reference for this. Reference is like key because you're just copying what it is basically. So yeah, I'm just further defining these feathers. With some black mehron paint, I'm coloring in my little bird's eyeball. With my Amazon Makeup Forever Flash Palette tube, I'm going in with a flat, like kind of round brush, and I am starting to highlight this bird. So I'm doing it on the head, I'm doing it on the beak, on the belly, and just on the wings as well. With these NYX Vinyl liquid liners, I'm taking Hazy first, and I just put like a dot on the eye. And then I took Alliance, and I'm starting to line each one of these feathers. So I'm separating the two wings, the two main ones, and I'm also giving the wings on the body a little bit more definition and just kind of outlining it with this eyeliner. Once I get done that, I'm taking the Smashbox Always On liquid liner, and I just put a little mouth hole or whatever, I lined it, and then I took Alliance again and I lined the beak. Then I took Vivid Halo and I started to create some more highlights on these wings and on the mouth. With Vivid Desire, I put a little bit of orange on the mouth, like the inside of it, and then I took Vivid Fire and put a little dot of that on the eye. Then I took the Absolute New York Yellow liner, put highlights all over the place with this. I really think highlights like bring stuff to life, so I put them like around the eye, on the head, on the body, just all over the place, y'all. With Fudge from Anastasia Beverly Hills, I started to define even more of those feathers and just like around his face and his beak and everything. And then I took, what did I take? Oh, Alliance again, and I went around the eye and I just kind of outlined it. Then we're taking my favorite, this is the NYX White liquid liner, and I am just doing it up. I'm putting highlights everywhere basically, on the beak, on the belly, on the eye, on the feathers, just literally every single place that I put highlights. I'm putting some white highlights because these are the most intense highlights and I love them so much. So yeah, they're going everywhere. Don't my bird look kind of cute? They look kind of cute, right? But anyway, I took the light pink paint and I mixed it with a little bit of white, and I'm coloring in all those roses at the bottom. So yeah, we're just placing down color. With the Sephora watercolor palette, I took the super light pink at the top row and I just placed it on top of all of the petals. With Lime Crime's Venus XL palette, I took Goddess and I started to outline and shade in these petals. So I'm just outlining them, and then I'm also doing the middle part of the rose, which is basically curved petals. It's kind of like a tube shape, and then you break up the tube shape into kind of like a circle in the middle, but then you keep doing that. Does that make any sense? I don't know. I would definitely look at reference. It's hard for me to even explain. But after I did that, I took the viseart editorial brights palette. I took the red shade and I started to further outline and shade in these petals. Now we're taking Star from Kat Von D again, and I'm adding a little bit of yellow to these petals because it's cute. So it's kind of like a lighting effect. It's also just pretty. Then I went back into my dupe Makeup Forever Flash palette Amazon thing, and I started to outline each one of the petals. I also took white from the Makeup Forever Flash palette tube, and I put a little line of white on each one of the petals to separate them and also just define them a little bit more as a highlight. And I also took yellow and added some yellow to each one of the petals. With the pink Vivid Bright, which for some reason I don't have there, I created more highlights on my flowers. So I'm just doing that by basically outlining on the inside of the red outline. I also did that with Vivid Halo, just had a little outline or highlight with that. And yeah, honestly, like I probably could have painted these flowers a little bit better. I'm not gonna lie, but I didn't. So whoopsie daisies. Then Absolute New York Yellow Liquid Liner, y'all know the drill. I put some more little dots of highlights on the petals. Did the same exact thing with the NYX White Liquid Liner because I love highlights. And I just really think it brings it together even when I'm lazy with painting it like I was with these flowers. After I got done that, I took the really light yellow shade from my Mehron palette and I started to fill in the leaves. So I'm just filling in all those leaves. I also filled in my cutie little moon face with some white paint. With my Give Me Glow staple palette, I took No Filter and I started to outline basically like one side of each one of these leaves. I also, for some of them, put a line in the middle with No Filter. I also add a little bit of No Filter to my bird because I thought he would look kind of cute with some olive in there. And then I took Noir from the Naturally Pretty palette and I did a little bit more of like a finer definition to each one of the leaves, as you guys can see, with like a tinier brush. You see what I'm talking about? I also took Alliance and Hazy and just did a combination of outlining with both of those. Using Vivid Halo from NYX, I did even more highlights. Like I did with everything, I'm adding just as many highlights to these leaves. So I am just basically doing it on like one side and then also a line in the middle. And then I took the yellow from Absolute New York and did the same thing. Just added like a more intense highlight with that. And I'm doing more like dots with this, honestly, because the applicator of this thing is so bad that you can't do a line. And then I took white, same thing, just dots of highlights with the white. With Lime Crime's Venus XL, I took Celestial and I added a little bit of shading to each one of those petals just so that they pop a little bit more and don't look as shitty. And I took Star and just placed that down on top of my moon, basically covering the whole entire thing with Star, so it's yellow. And what else did I do? Oh, I took the green from the Sephora watercolor palette, the like teal shade, and I did a little bit of teal on the one side to create a little bit of shading. I also did some underneath the cheekbone. Then we're going into Peach from, there's like a peachy shade in that Sephora palette as well, and I'm adding some shading to the other side of the moon and also giving my little moon face some blush cheeks. And I just started to outline the face as well. So the nose, the eyes, the lips. And then I went in with the red from the viseart editorial brights and I started to further define each thing. So eyes, nose, lips, and gave my little thing some eyelids. It's so cute. Look at his little face. I did a bit more shading with that Sephora palette with the peach shade just around the eyes, and then I took the peach and I just did like the craters or whatever, which is just basically dots of eyeshadow. I also took Noir from the Naturally Pretty palette and started to define the eyelids and the mouth and the nose a little bit more. With Smashbox is always on liquid liner, I started to do like an outline on the eyes and the mouth, and I also, what else I do? Oh, I took the Vivid Bright and Vivid Halo and I did a little highlight on the eyes. I took my Makeup Forever Flash Palette dupe, I took the white shade and I did an extreme highlight on the one side of the moon. I also tapped it out with my finger to dull it out a little bit. Then I took the Vivid Bright and Vivid Desire and added a little bit more definition around the face. So nose, eyes, lips, all of it. This is the Absolute New York Yellow liquid liner and I added an extreme highlight with that. Again, all over, nose, eyes. And just, yeah, anywhere where there would be light. I just add a little tap. With the light blue from the Sephora watercolor palette, I had a little bit of like a blue shade underneath the lips, and I gave my moon some little eyebrows with that. This is the NYX foundation mixer in white. I took this and I added, again, some more extreme highlights. You guys know the drill. To the nose, eyes. I also added little swirls to my moon's cheeks because I just like those. I like adding those. I think they're cute. And I took the NYX white liquid liner and did the same exact thing, and I added my last step of highlights to this moon. Now to finally do the background, I took some black paint. I filled in everything that wasn't already painted with black. I painted this bird's feet, but it was like totally out of focus or whatever. So I'm basically looking at reference, and I did it with the mehron paint, like the red shade that I'm doing these branches in. And then I added some white highlights to the bird's feet just so that they stood out some more, because painting on top of black paint is very hard. So you kind of have to rely on the highlights to really bring it to life because it just mixes with the black. But for these branches, I'm making sure that they're like just very organic shapes. So not like very straight, just kind of wiggly. And I'm just connecting them to each one of the leaves. With the Makeup Forever Flash Palette dupe, I took some pink paint and I just added a little bit of a highlight to each one of my branches. I did this kind of spaced out, not like completely over each one of the branches on one side. And then I took the Hazy vinyl liquid liner and I just built up my branches a little bit. And I took Hex from the NYX Lip of the Days and I added a little bit more of a highlight to the branches, just all over. I also added a dot of it to the eyeball. I took pink from that Makeup Forever Flash Palette dupe and I added some pink to my little sky. And now I'm gonna do my clouds. So I did that with the NYX SFX cream paint in white, and I'm just tapping them on with my finger. Once I get done that, I take the Inglot Body Sparkles. I took the shade, what is this? 53, and I added this to the sky as well. It just gives it like a purpley, sparkly effect. It's real pretty. And I took white from that Makeup Forever Flash Palette dupe. I have a round brush, and I'm just dragging it down to create highlights in those clouds. We're almost done, the skyline. So I took some lash glue and I put that into my sky, and then I have some like star sparkle things like craft glitter, and I put that in the sky as well. Then I took the NYX Vivid Bright and Vivid Halo, added some dots of yellow to the sky, and I also did the same thing with the Absolute New York liner in yellow. Again, y'all, I love highlights, so I took the NYX white liquid liner and I just did some little taps of highlights on each like peak or top part of the clouds. And we're finally onto the face, yay, beach. So I'm taking some primer, the Makeup Forever mattifying and also the pore minimizing primer, and I'm just putting that all over my face. Then I took the TV paint stick from Krylon in 070, and I put that all over my face as well, and also on my eyebrows because I'm trying to cover those things up. And I'm buffing it out with a like round buffing brush because I feel like that works the best with this like super thick ass foundation. I also took my Kat Von D white concealer and I put that like all over my face basically, just to thicken up like the whiteness, make it more opaque. And I took the Stargazer white powder and I tapped that on top. It's like a pigmented white face powder, and that just set everything. For a primer, I took the NYX holographic eye tint in Fairy Dust, I think, and I just put that all over my lid, and then I went into my Viseart palette again, took the yellow and put that all over like the middle part of my face, all over my nose, also on my chin apparently, and also I put some on my forehead, shapes coming down towards my eyebrows. Tarte's Natural Beauty, which like has to be my favorite blush, I swear. But I put this all over my cheeks. Yeah, so I'm just buffing it out and blending it into the yellow. And I put some on my nose, on my chin. It's cute. Okay, Viseart. I took the teal shade and I started to contour. So I'm contouring my cheekbones. I also put a little bit on my temples as well. With that red from that Viseart palette, I took a little bit and I'm just tapping it like on the very middle of my cheeks just to have like a really concentrated area of that red. I also added some to my nose and my chin. With the yellow from that palette, I put a little bit on my chin and then I put some on my lids. So I'm just placing it on my lids and I'm blending it outward toward my temples. Hey, okay. With that teal, I wanted to define like the inner part of my eyelid a little bit and kind of flick it outward. So I'm just doing that. This is an Inglot pigment in 111. I put this on my cheekbones. I'm just like blending it with my finger. I also put a little bit on the tip of my nose and the middle part, or like between my eyebrows and my cupid's bow. Now for my funky eyebrows. So I took that red from the Viseart palette and I took like a rounded eyeshadow brush and I just pressed down really hard and spun and I got that circular shape. I also took the NYX white liquid liner and created some swirls on the little cheeks. Apparently I also highlighted my nostrils. So I did this, I just did like an outline around my nostrils and that's basically it. This is the NYX Vivid Brights in Vivid Halo and I just did some little yellow freckles on my nose, chin, and like that little yellow area above my eyebrows. With NYX's Coral Reef mascara, I just tapped on some like little peachy freckles. And I also put some on the yellow part on my forehead and on my chin. Now for my eyebrow swirls, so I just took the NYX white liquid liner and I just did a little swirl on my eyebrows. I also took this and I did some dots of like freckles on just basically wherever there are freckles. I added some white dots. Now onto the eyes. So I took the white paint from Mehron and I started to do the petals of a rose on my eyes. So I just did like one big long kind of eyeliner looking petal on my top lid and then I did the sort of like center part of the rose on my bottom lid and then 2 additional petals. So I sketched them out and then I filled them in with white paint. With the pink from the Viseart palette, I started to separate the petals and also shade them in. So I'm just like flicking it into the white and then defining where those petals are. So the 2 on the bottom. And then I'm doing that tube thing. Do you kind of see it? Do you kind of see it? Oh, I also took red from Viseart and I really like defined those petals. This is the NYX Vivid Bright and Vivid Fire. And I really started to like define the petals and separate them. And can you like, you see what I'm talking about? How it's a tube and then it's like separated. Do you kind of see it? It's the easiest way that I know how to explain it. Roses are very difficult to explain, guys. Like it's nonsense. Anyway, I took the NYX white liquid liner and I created like a highlight on each one of those petals just to further define them. And I really like how these this eyeshadow rose turned out as opposed to the bottom rose because I really don't like how those ones turned out. But anyway, I took my red eyeshadow and I just put it all over my lips and then I like blended it out with my finger as well as a blending brush. I also decided to add a little bit of like teal shading to my cupid's bow, and then I took the NYX white liquid liner and I added a little bit of like painterly highlights to the lips. And that is the finished look. I hope you guys liked it. It took me a butt, like this is the longest tutorial ever. I'm really sorry. But yeah, I hope you guys liked it. Like this video if you like this video, subscribe, it makes me happy. Go check out Tracy Lewis on Instagram. I'll have a link down below. And I hope you guys are having a beautiful day. Bye!